Growing up, I had dreams and aspirations, but always felt like the kid that didn't fit in. For the most part, I wasn't a bad kid, but when I made the transition into adulthood, I turned to the streets for guidance. This led to getting locked up in juvenile hall, doing time in CYA, and eventually a 120-month sentence in federal prison. I had a lot of time to think and reflect during my federal sentence, so I share with you what I learned, hoping I can positively influence someone else's life with Prison Talk. You know, if we were in a Mad Max situation where there was no law, you know, we're talking about anarchy, we're talking about every man for himself, and you had warring tribes, similar to what you had in prison, how would that play out? Well, prison is based on warring tribes or warring gangs or warring factions because of the institution. The institution promotes a lot of the divide and conquer in prison. You'll have, you know, a white guy and a black guy who could possibly be friends, but then you'll have a guard who maybe drop a kite. What they mean by that is drop a line to some other blacks that, hey, this black guy is hanging out with his white guys, or he's giving them drugs, or whatever the case may be, to start some shit. And then that'll kind of like break that up real quick. So they don't want the communication among the blacks and the whites. You know, as far as the Hispanics, you know, you got the Serranos and the Norteños. And then you got the Serranos who don't like the Norteños because they're from up north. And that's been going on for decades just because of whatever undermining beliefs that goes along with that. And a lot of times, you know, guards, as you know, they'll put certain individuals on the yard to cause certain situations, and there is no dialogue between the Norteños and Serranos in the pen. You know, you have the shot callers of each faction kind of doing their thing, managing their tribe, but they don't have any exchange of communication as far as friendly sentiment. It's not going down. Same thing with the Serranos and the blacks. They can't socialize with the blacks. So you have that going on, and that's basically pushed by the the people who run the institutions, the wardens, the guards, and so forth. So as far as if there was pure anarchy, I think that you would have a sense of division, but it wouldn't be as across the board as you have in the penitentiary. See, in the penitentiary, it's not based on intelligence, it's based on pure action, like what you've done on the street, what you've done in the pen, what your reputation says. So you can have a guy who barely has a GED calling shots for a group of people, and maybe this guy's rationale is not the best. And then at the same time, you have a guy who is very intelligent, even though he doesn't have a high school diploma, and he thinks very militant, and he's well-read, he's self-educated, and he actually makes wise decisions, but is overlooked because of his lack of education as far as college is concerned. So it goes either way. You can have the guy who's not college educated, who's making bad decisions, or the guy who's college educated and he's still not making wise decisions. And so as far as the division on the street, you would have, I think, a lot more unity than you would have in the pen, and you'd have a lot more dialogue among the races, just because, if you're not caged up and you're not limited to just an institution, if to say the city of Los Angeles or the city of San Francisco or Sacramento was your stomping grounds, it would be a lot more space to move around in. So people wouldn't be as caught up in controlling a drug in a particular area, or controlling the gambling in a particular area, or what have you. Because a lot of the stuff in prison between the gangs is based on money. You know, who's selling the drugs, who's bringing in the drugs, who's controlling the gambling, the loan sharking, things of that nature, because it's all survival. You know, you're trying to eat, you're trying to provide while you're in there, send money to maybe people on the street. So you take away that element, and there's really not a lot of need for that type of friction. You know, you don't have the need for people to be as uptight if they're on the street. And you know, I see a white guy, there's no need for me to trip off of him getting money, because I'm getting money too. And like I said, everything boils down to economics. You know, on the street you have Mexican guys selling drugs to black guys to an extent, because they got the plug and the black guys can move the drugs. You know, or you got the Asians with the artillery who are selling to whoever, because of just money. So on the street, the game is different. You know, the economics is global, the money being made is global, and it's not limited to just a small little institution. And you don't have, you know, if you had a shit hit the fan situation and you didn't have like authority figures over you, who would really be pushing the racial agenda? You know, a lot of guys in prison know more about history and about racism than most of the people on the street, just because these guys a lot of them are anti-government, anti-establishment, so they've read a lot of things and they know the truth. They know a lot of this shit is bullshit, and they know a lot of it is just because they're in a situation, they roll with it. But if they're not in that prison situation, you know, a lot of guys can think outside the box, and they have an opportunity to make money, to make shit happen, then they're gonna make it happen. And I think a lot of those gang members or guys who are shot callers in the pen, you know, they would actually probably be on the forefront to some degree. But you know, if you could get if those guys worked hand in hand with a lot of these other guys on the street who were militarily trained and educated, you would have a hell of a situation. Because if they worked hand in hand with those guys, then they would be running shit. So you would have a lot of these gang members putting down moves, and actually these docile people out here who have been basically put to sleep through the news and through all this other bullshit, they would be looking for these guys for some type of guidance, because they don't have any balls. You know, a lot of society who's out here now have been, the males have been demasculinized, and the women are running the households, and that's because of a lot of the alpha males, you know, because of their personality and just the way they care, their character traits. You know, they're either in the military across overseas fighting, or they're in the pen. You know, those are the guys who are putting it out there. You got some of them in college too, but like I said, a lot of these women had demasculinized these guys, and the males have been feminized. You know, I mean, you don't have guys. You know, I've seen a lot of guys in the pen who, if they were on the street, these guys are very dominant males. Their role would be a lot more impressionable for the youth out there. So, you know, not to, like I said, get off topic again, but, you know, putting that in the perspective with how these gang members would react in a shit hit the fan situation, I think they'd be pushing the line. And a lot of these guys, they'd be making shit happen, where, you know, the males on the street, they're so fucking scared of authority and just, you know, of getting caught up, that they would be waiting for somebody to help them out rather than being proactive. Lockdown's over. Get your yard time in. Exclusively at FreshOutSeries.com.